Welcome to the Wyoming State Capitol. The Capitol was originally built in 1886. Cheyenne was selected to be the capital because at the time there weren't any other cities that were that large. And there's always been kind of a rivalry between Casper and Cheyenne. Cheyenne became a city in 1867, and in 1869 there was only a fort in Casper, and it closed that same year. And then Casper didn't become an actual city until 1869, and at that point they had already started building the Capitol. In 1904 they did ask the citizens of Wyoming to vote on where they wanted the Capitol to be, and Cheyenne did receive 40% of the votes. What they wanted was 50% plus one. So it was never totally settled. Until 1982 they passed a law making it the official state capitol. As you're walking up to the front of the state capitol, you'll see the state seal. There are 782 pieces of granite that make up the seal, and some of the granite has come from all over the world. You can only get certain colors from certain areas, so it's kind of interesting. You'll also see two statues. There's Esther Hobart Morris and Chief Washakie. Esther Hobart Morris was instrumental with getting the women's right to vote in Wyoming, and that was in 1869 when we were still a territory. And it wasn't just to vote, it was to be able to hold public office, to own property, and to have a woman's signature recognized on legal documents. And then she became the first female justice of the peace in 1870. Chief Washakie was chief of the Shoshone tribe for over 60 years. He died in 1900 at the age of 102. He was buried with full military honors, being the only Native American to ever receive that honor up to that point. The outside of the Capitol is Corinthian style with the columns. The outside of the dome is copper, but because it tarnishes so badly, in 1900 is when they started doing the gold leafing. It only takes 1 ounce of gold to cover the whole entire dome, and they've had to redo it 5 times since 1900, and the last time was in 2010. The inside of the dome is stained glass. It's double-sided stained glass that was popular at the time. The design that's around the stained glass was originally a different design. In 1934, as part of a public arts project after the Depression, they changed that area and added the state and territorial seals. When people first come into the Capitol, they're struck by how beautiful the stained glass is for the dome. They look up and you can hear them ooh and awe about how beautiful it is. Another thing that they really like is the checkerboard floors. The floors are marble. The white gray tiles are Italian marble, and the black tiles come from the state of Vermont. And in the black tiles, you'll actually be able to see fossils all throughout the building. As you walk through the front doors into the Capitol, you'll see that we don't have any metal detectors. We want people to feel that this is a warm and welcoming place for them to come, that they're free to wander through the building to see the different things. On the first floor, you'll see the governor's office, the Secretary of State, the state auditor, the state treasurer. On the second and third floor, you'll find the legislative branches. So we just want them to feel free to come in and experience the building the way that they would experience this state, just warm and welcoming. As we enter the governor's portrait gallery, you'll see a bust of Lincoln at the end of the hall. Between Cheyenne and Laramie, there is a big Lincoln monument. This is the original plaster mold for that. And Lincoln's tie with Wyoming is through the railroad. That was his dream, to build the Transcontinental Railroad to unite the states. He signed the Pacific Rail Act in 1862, and then the Union Pacific first came here in 1867. You'll also see at the end of the hall Governor Francis E. Warren, the territorial governor when the building was first started, and then our first elected governor. Over here is Governor Ed Hirsch Ler. He's the only governor to ever serve 3 terms in Wyoming. And here we have Nellie Taylor Ross. She was our first and only female governor. Her husband was governor and he died in office. Frank Lucas became our acting governor and he called for a special election. The Democrats nominated Mrs. Ross. She accepted and won. And she's not only our first female governor, but the first in the United States. She did run for a second term, but wasn't reelected. But she was later appointed by Franklin Roosevelt to be the director of the U.S. Mint, and she served there for 20 years and died at the age of 101. Over here we have Governor John Osborne. Before he became governor, he was a doctor and he worked at the state penitentiary over in Rawlins. At that time, there was an outlaw named Big Nose George that they arrested and hung. And when they did that, he did his autopsy. And he actually skinned part of him and had shoes made out of it. The back part is leather and the front part's his skin. And if you really want to see the shoes, they're over in Rawlins at the Carbon County Museum. We're entering the lobby area for the House chambers. This is the only way in and out for our representatives to come to do their work here. It's the same on the Senate side. So during the session, this is where all the lobbyists gather. We're in the House chambers on the second floor. The legislative session is on the odd years. They're here for 40 days. The even years, they're here for 20 days. And that's usually in January, February, and March. Originally, that started because a lot of them were ranchers and farmers, and that was an off time of year for them to come. And a lot of them still are ranchers and farmers. We've had quite a few representatives as well as senators go on to serve at a national level. I think one of our most famous was Alan Simpson. He was very popular in the 70s and throughout the 80s and into the 90s. He is still alive and lives up in Casper and is still very active in the state. Wyoming is one of the few states that is doing very well financially, and a big part of that is because of our natural resources. Governor Hathaway, he did a lot of really great things, and one of the things that he did was set aside a trust. So a lot of the money from the natural resources automatically goes into that trust and is not allowed to be touched. Because of that, it helps us to remain a very healthy state and has continued to grow. Throughout the building, you'll see different artwork. In the House and Senate, you will see 4 murals that were done by Alan Tupper True from Denver in 1917. You'll see the trappers, and the trappers were the first ones to come out here. Jim Bridger and John Coulter were the first ones to find Yellowstone. Then you'll see the homesteaders, who started coming in the early 1800s and then a lot after the Civil War. You'll see the cattlemen. The cattle industry began to boom after the railroad came here. We had a lot of cattle barons in the area. And then you'll see the stagecoach, which was their way of transportation back then. We're currently in the lobby area for the Senate, and then we're coming into the Senate chambers here. You'll see more of the stained glass in here, and the design has 2 of the state seals. We have 30 senators. The political makeup in Wyoming is the majority are Republican. Usually in the national elections, it always goes Republican. But when we're voting for state officials and city and county officials, that can vary. People will look at the person and not necessarily the party. Our previous governor served 2 terms, and he was a Democrat and very well liked. So we've had, both throughout the years. So on a state level, it's a good combination. I think that they're both represented well. To me, the state capitol represents the state of Wyoming and its people through the different artwork. We have a lot of artwork that shows our Western past. Another thing about the state capitol that represents the people is its openness. It's nice to have that open field because that's how the state is. People are very friendly throughout the state, and it's nice that we can represent that right here in a small way in the Capitol. It's a lot of fun doing the tours with the kids and helping them to understand the history of the state and how excited they are to come here and see the building, meet the governor or other elected officials.